In this video, we're going to go over how to properly optimize an image in Photoshop to add to our web page. So we're starting off with this pretty sweet mural of Boba Fett, and we need to get this down to a reasonable size to add to our web page. So best practices for a fast page load time on a web page. We want our images to be 100 KB max, preferably less than that. So in order to do that, we need to optimize our images. Now there's a couple different ways to do this, and we'll go over those in a couple different videos here. But the first method for doing that is going to be just to export an image for web via Photoshop. So we're going to do that. Now on PC, the quick keys for doing that are Control-Shift-Alt-S, and that's going to bring up our Save for Web window. Now we got a few different pieces of information to look at here. The first thing I look at, usually for a web build, we're going to use JPEG Medium. And all these presets do right here is change this quality number over here. So JPEG Medium brings the quality level to 30. And then the next area I'm going to focus on is the image size. Now while we're making these changes, the area of the screen that I'm keeping an eye on is this bottom left corner here where it gives us the file size. So right now you can see it's at 1.552 megabytes, way too big. We need to bring it way down. So in this particular image, it's probably not going to be like a hero image where it's very wide, stretching across the screen. We could do that if we needed to. If it's a wide rectangular shaped image that's going on like a hero div, I'm probably going to set the width at 1800 pixels, which will hopefully keep us looking pretty sharp, like on a 4K resolution screen or a Retina device. And then we'll have to modify the quality from there. So in this example, I can already tell you if I change the width to 1800, it's not going to be low enough file size for us. It still only brings us down to 534K. Now this particular image, because it's long and not necessarily wide, it's probably going to be an image like we put on the page next to some text. So probably we're thinking like, maybe 800 pixels wide or 1000 pixels wide. So we'll bring it down to 800 here in the width section. And you'll see that the height is automatically modified to keep the image proportions as we scale it down here. So I hit tab over. So now we're getting a lot closer. If we get to a width of 800, on a quality level of 30, we're down to a file size of 118K. And I still need to get that under that 100 KB mark. So we have a couple options here. If I don't want to go any less on the width, then I can crop the image height, or we can add a slight overlay on the image to kind of bring the file size down. So one thing that brings these file sizes, that expands them a lot, is all the different colors, making that file size pretty large. So in this case, if I know I'm going to have like a text overlay on top of an image, I can go ahead and add an overlay layer on top of the image before I save it in Photoshop. That way we're not running that CSS on the page to have an overlay of like a darker color or whatever, and it's already baked into the image before it gets to the page. So let's do that real quick. Let's add a new layer, and we will just fill that in, and then we'll take our opacity down to say 35%. And you can see that kind of darkens the image just a little bit. So you'll kind of have some compromises here, like I said, but if you do enough of these, you'll kind of know what opacity you need for your text to really pop out, and kind of still have a high quality image. So I like how that looks. 45% opacity on that overlay. And let's go and try to export this thing again. So already we can see the file size is way down because of that overlay. It's kind of muting some of those colors. So let's take it down. Let's see where it's at 1800. Down 325. Last time it was over 500. And then to our ideal width for that page is probably gonna be around 800. Boom, we're at 73 kilobytes. I can live with that for this image. Now again, and this would be a text overlay situation. If we need that full brightness and we need those colors to really pop, then we can get rid of this, and we're gonna have to modify the height a little bit and bring it down, maybe cut off part of that circle or come up from the bottom and crop it and then try to save it again. Now we're at 105 without an overlay. So here you could either crop it again or we could bring it down to 750 or 700. So 750 gets us under that 100 KB mark. And that's really just it's a best practice. By default, you're going to want to just throw images on there, but this is a very important step to take to ensure that your pages are going to load fast, that your users are going to have a good experience, and it'll help keep your bounce rate low, keep people on the page and get them the information they're looking for, and just have a smooth experience on your website. So with that, we can just save it if we're happy with that at 93 KB size. And the other piece of information here is probably going to be like your data. So if you're purchasing like stock photos on Shutterstock or something like that, like this image came from Unsplash, which is a free image library. Something that you always want to check is just make sure there's any information on there that could be like metadata that bleeds onto your page. So the way we're going to do that is Control-Shift-Alt-I, and that is going to bring up the information about this image. And typically, like Unsplash, a lot of those images won't have any data in here. But if you're purchasing from an image library like Shutterstock or Adobe Stock Photos, you're probably going to have some data in here that you don't necessarily want bleeding through on your website. So it's always good to go in and clear that out, and make sure it doesn't kind of muddy up our SEO stuff that we're trying to do to help that page be fully optimized. You can add some keywords in here. So if this is a specific image going on a page, you could add some keywords that are related to the content that's on that page. And then the last thing you want to do when you save this image, you want to make sure that the title of the image fits your page. I mean, obviously we want to have an image that relates to the content that is on the web page that we're adding it to, but we want to not just save this image as the self-explanatory title like Boba Fett in this instance. If we're adding this to a web page that's dedicated to Star Wars Bounty Hunters, or the H1 of my page is Star Wars Bounty Hunters, or the Book of Boba Fett, whatever content you're writing on that page, then you want to title this image something that's going to be similar or the actual keyword that you're trying to rank for on that page. So if the title of our page was Star Wars Bounty Hunters, I might title this image Star Wars Bounty Hunters Boba Fett, not just Boba Fett. Give it more context, give Google more information to work with, and that should go a long way as far as feeding into your overall SEO strategy and best practices.